ATC, yeah, this is Kilo Bravo Bravo 100 requesting permission for takeoff.
Hey, you are not a pilot. This is a pilot, and you are in a Target parking lot. Now give me back my dad's aviator glasses and my headphones.
She's right, this is a Pilot, the Honda Pilot, the largest SUV in Honda's lineup. The fourth generation came out in 2023, and well, it was good. They sold a lot, but there's always room for improvement. So let's find out, is the refresh improved enough? Let's start with visual changes, which for a mid-cycle refresh aren't typically that dramatic. And it's the same story here, but there are some things worth noting. This grille is ginormous. This is me for scale. The Honda badge is nearly the size of my head, but that's where they pack in the radar and things like that. So it does have some effect. You also have a big, more muscular, almost truck-like front end, with this now being all, I guess in this case, gray. You could also get it in black, but the main thing here is it's no longer body color matched to the rest of the paint color. It's just its own chin thing up here. I kind of like it. It's now more bold and upright than ever. In fact, I think it's trying to separate itself a bit more from its little sibling, the CR-V. And after 23 years, maybe that's what it wants to do. When I was 23, I didn't really want to be that much like my little brothers either, so relatable? All right, now into the side profile. Well, they didn't really change anything, actually, except for the wheels. If you like the wheels, that's worth it. Around back here, you have a couple more changes. Notably, Pilot is written out very clearly here, much more prominently than before, where it kind of blended in. You also have a bit more modernized lighting signature back here. I'll take that. And then you can see the roof rails up there. Those are now standard, and this power tailgate now standard across the board. Love to see it. On the inside, you'll see a decent amount of storage space, but what's really impressive is me and Lynn are here with all of our gear, and that's all under here. Backpack, carry-on bag, purse, goodies, water. I mean, by the way, sustainable water bottles from Honda, very, very eco. And still room for other stuff in case we find other people we want to pick up on our way back to the hotel. So I'll just close this now standard power tailgate with the single button. There's no two buttons there to confuse anyone. The colors. This is, well, not really a color. Or is it every color? Is white every color in one? I'm not really sure. There are new colors though. And this isn't really the one I would pick. The Trail Sport has a new color, an ash green, which I'm a huge fan of. Love green cars. That's what I would go with personally, which means I guess I would get the Trail Sport. But in the other various trims, there are other colors, a new gray if you're asking for that. I don't know if I'd take white, but hey, it's clean, blends in. Some people like that. It's a 3-row, which means obviously we have to test the 3rd row, and I am actually shocked. I'm 6 feet tall, or 1.89 meters if you use that system. And yeah, I've got USB ports, I've got vents, I've got 4 cup holders in case each rear passenger has 2 drinks. That's pretty rad, actually. And the comfort, actually not too bad. I don't know if I'd be thrilled on a long road trip. I would feel slightly claustrophobic, and you don't get like a 3rd row moonroof like you would in some other things like a Cadillac Vistica. I don't know, something rolls off the top of my head. But I'll take the bigger side windows. Still a bit of a big C-pillar here, but hey, the kids in the back aren't the ones driving the car. Let's see how hard it is to get out, though. Okay, doable, but I wouldn't like make that a regular routine. I would instead fight for the people in the 2nd row and see how those feel, which I will do now. And basically sitting in front of myself, this is also actually fairly nice. I do like having the moonroof. Of course, the upper trims are the only ones that get this, but it's very large and expansive. It's great to have. It feels a little less claustrophobic, a little less cavernous, as does the light-colored headliner. Really like that. That's something I would probably look for. I also like the door panels, by the way, just to point out the cup holders here, elevated, which is nice and very easy to access. That's across all 4 doors. Huge fan of that. From a comfort standpoint, beyond, well, the comfort of the seat, which is okay, not amazing. You do have outboard heated seats. Those are also available in upper trims. No ventilated seats in the back. That would be really nice, cherry on top, but hey, I get it. It's more cost and tech, and they're trying to keep that stuff down. Got USB ports, power outlet, and climate control for the rear area. You can have 7 or 8 passenger configurations. Personally, the 8 passenger might not be the worst thing because you have this center seat, which can fit someone if you needed to, but personally, I'd probably leave them at home. Instead, fold this down, you have a nice center console with cup holders, some storage, and I think you can even pull this up and remove this entirely. The back has a couple notable components of nice texture and material, notably on the upper part of the seats, not the whole seat, just the upper part that you're ironically not really sitting on. And then there's also some wood trim on the door that seems to be wood trim that was then dropped and broken and then glued back together. That's how it looks anyways, which I think is interesting, maybe a bit unique, but not really my cup of tea. But hey, I'll take it over just plain injection molded plastic. The front though, that's obviously what I care about as the driver and as you might care about as a potential buyer. You can clearly sit very far back, so I'm actually impressed that I was sitting back there behind myself because I was not in my driving position. Let me just wait 17 minutes while I move up to position here. There we go. Standard power seats on both sides, by the way. That's great to have. A bit more control over here with lumbar and such. So the tech now is improved. There are bigger screens across the board no matter what. No more small, sad screens. Up from a 7-inch now, a 10.2-inch driver screen, which is fantastic. And then no more 9-inch screen here, you now have 12-inch across the board. That's a 37% improvement, in case you care about that many pixels. But it's actually really nice. I quite like it. Unfortunately, the volume knob took a different approach. It's just the that's the smallest thing I've ever seen. The biggest car Honda sells has the smallest volume knob. That's hilarious to me. Below the screen is the climate control, which is all, fortunately, usable, tactile, clicky buttons. As much as I hope Honda tries to catch up with the rest of the playing field on technology, I'm glad they're not adopting the climate control being inside the screen. They have physical buttons here, very easy to just throw your muscle memory down there and tap your, in my case, ventilated seat. In Lynn's case, heated seat. It's great to have those super easily accessible. And again, dual climate control is fantastic up front because it's rare when both people want the exact same temperature. The technology is definitely improved with Google built in, apps, Google Assistant, Maps, and more. There's better processing and a faster UI than the previous model with less lag and smoother operation, plus quicker boot up time. All of these are welcome inclusions and help bring it up to par, I'd say, with the rest of the playing field. Wireless CarPlay and Android Auto are now standard, finally. And of course, you have the Honda Link app for controls and over-the-air updates. Plus USB-C ports in all 3 rows. Well, that's a welcome inclusion. As far as everything else you're looking at beyond the tech, unfortunately, that hasn't really changed. It's I'd say, fairly generic interior. If you were to cover this logo, this wouldn't really tell you anything about what you're driving. There's a really nice little suede substance down here where you won't actually see it, and I'm not really sure why, but otherwise up here you have decent soft touch kind of leather and then injection molded kind of plastic, but it is a little bit soft touch. This is okay. I don't know, a lot of it looks fairly cheap, unfortunately cheaper than the price of the car, but it is functional. You have a shelf here, which I love. I think passengers appreciate that. But otherwise, it just feels kind of bland. There is some piano black. Don't love to see piano black really at all, but at least it differentiates the many, many shades of, well, it's really just all one shade, but the many touch points of gray that all look the exact same. While the climate control may be my favorite, the push button controls are not my favorite. I much rather have just a gear selector of some sort. Having the buttons is a bit annoying to me, but it works, I'll take it. Steering wheel itself feels really nice. There is some piano black plastic, but in between that is some nice tactile buttons that look and feel good. They control things like your ADAS, your driver assistance, volume control, the usual stuff. You also have a heated steering wheel button if it's equipped with the heated steering wheel, and you have paddles. Really chintzy paddles. I don't know why they don't just use the nice paddles from the new Honda Prelude. parts sharing. That'd be great. And then you'd be inclined to use these perhaps while driving. Speaking of driving, let's go do that. Driving the Honda Pilot. By the way, I mentioned the Prelude should give its paddle shifters to the Pilot. Well, the Pilot should give its 360 camera to the Prelude. Let's just do some negotiations there. But driving this thing, honestly, pretty nice and relaxed, but also vanilla, which isn't totally a bad thing. Vanilla ice cream, vanilla lattes, those are things that sell, but they're not exactly like inspiring. With this refresh, Honda also tried to tweak some of the driving dynamics to make it more engaging. That was done through mostly steering feel, which does change a bit across drive modes, and what they tried to do is improve the on-center weight. So it makes for more relaxed highway driving when you're just driving and trying to keep it well centered, but also when you're taking a corner and trying to do things a bit more in a sporty fashion, which isn't really a Pilot thing, but it can't hurt to help. And I don't know if I would really notice, honestly. I've been driving this all day, none of those things jumped out at me, I guess I should say. Now, perhaps if I had the previous year Pilot back to back with this, I might notice and value those changes. Either way, they have the numbers from the engineers that it has worked, so props to them, and props to you if you notice. But I guess I could say there are worse SUVs to have in the curves, but I don't know if that's a glowing endorsement. There's a lot of drive modes, 7 to be exact, and now that I'm in the corners throwing it into sport mode, it definitely holds the revs a bit higher, which I guess does help with driving downhill, a bit more engine braking involved. And I still wouldn't, I don't know, sport is like the wrong term to be mixed with this car, but there's a sport mode if you're into that kind of thing. And I don't think I've ever seen a Pilot off-road, but there are some off-road driving modes if you want to be one of the few. Underneath the family-friendly vibe, the Pilot hides some genuinely clever hardware. Honda's iVTM4 all-wheel drive system really rolls off the tongue, and it doesn't just shuffle power to the back, it can actively push more torque to one rear wheel than the other. The result is better traction in bad weather, and a big SUV that feels surprisingly composed when the road gets twisty. There's also noise, vibration, and harshness improvements, or NVH for those acronym enthusiasts out there. Acoustic glass is now standard, and there's better insulation in doors and fender liners. Touring and higher get the fender liners for some reason. The carpet absorbs slightly more noise, and the cabin is basically quieter by 2 to 3 decibels in key frequencies. Well, that leads me to the elephant in the room, which is the powertrain. Much to many people's disappointment, this has not jumped into the hybridization that is seen elsewhere in Honda's lineup and elsewhere in this segment. This is one of those that remains with its strong, proven V6, 3.5 liter V6, dual overhead cam, so not quite the same as the one in the Odyssey. And honestly, I might argue I'd prefer the Odyssey's engine in this, but it's still decent power, at least close to sea level. Maybe up at altitude, you might be a bit starved on some of that power, but I'd say it's plenty decent, and a lot of people won't argue that the engine is correct in this. I think it's decent, and I think I understand the argument that this might be the correct engine, though I would say a lot of people like having options. Just having this engine and nothing else means that they're not jumping into the hybrid world and therefore not jumping into better fuel economy, which is probably going to be a lot of people's complaints, especially families who care about efficiency and gas prices. I don't think I love the 10-speed transmission paired with it. It's just a lot of shifting happening and not always exactly when I want it, but then that's when I'm happy I have the plasticky paddles. With the entry-level trims, you have two-wheel drive, powering the front wheels, and you can only tow about 3,500 pounds with that, but jumping up to all-wheel drive gives you 5,000 pounds towing, which is pretty decent for this segment, and the infamous all-wheel drive. So now we're on the highway, and that's where some of these improvements would ideally have more effect, such as the, I guess, heavier weighted on-center feel for the steering. And I actually, okay, maybe I can feel a hair of where this comes into play, and it's nice. You don't want to have to like keep fighting a car, especially just to go straight. So that is beneficial. Another thing Honda has claimed to improve is their driving assistance system, which means you can turn on lane centering actually separate from cruise control, which is cool. So the car will help keep you in the lane regardless of using cruise control. I actually love that feature. We see that also with Hyundai and Kia. And if I engage cruise control with the lane centering, we have everything playing together, and that has also supposedly been improved. Now, I was using it with some other roads that are less perfectly straight, still like not super windy, but just like really gradual curves, and it was struggling. So I wouldn't say it's the most competent ADAS system out there. It's definitely no Blue Cruise, Super Cruise, and is leagues behind the FSD, even autopilot, but it is still a net helpful thing for a road trip. I'll take it. Well, they've built about 2.5 million of these in the last 20 years out in Alabama, so I guess you could say it's a success. You could also say vanilla ice cream is a success, so there's something to be said about that, but I think it's fine. It's totally a decent car. A lot of people clearly like this because of how well it's sold, and I think if you're looking for simple, easy to understand, totally neutral transportation, this is really hard to beat. There's a lot of other SUVs out there with more aggressive, almost weird styling that kind of puts some people off. A lot of people are cross-shopping this with like the Hyundai Palisade, the Kia Telluride, and while those have fun, interesting, bold design languages, some people might prefer the classic look of this three-row SUV. So straddling the line of innovation versus don't fix if it ain't broke is hard, but that's exactly what Honda's trying to do here. This refresh it is a refresh, but it's very, very, very mild. And I think, like I said, most people are gonna be fine with that. They took what was clearly already a good formula and just pushed a little harder in the technology, styling, just little tweaks here and there. So let me know what you guys think of the refresh. Personally, I think it's safe, maybe too safe for me, but I think a lot of people will be very happy with the minor tweaks that they've made. If you're interested, we can give you a fair purchase price, Kelley Blue Book, click the link up above. And technically the Odyssey beats this in a lot of ways on paper, so most of you should just get the Odyssey because unless you're trying to go off-road, in which case get the Pilot Trail Sport, but the Odyssey will do all of your target runs just fine with more space, perhaps more cargo capacity. But if you like the SUV thing, there you go.